Hello everyone and welcome back to my little art room, or welcome here for the first time. This has been a bit of a nightmare video to make. There's just been a lot of issues, a lot of me not being happy with it, etc, etc, but we're persevering, we persevere. And actually that is somewhat the theme of like a talking bit that I'm going to have later on. But this is mainly a video about my visit to Skipton Castle and like some little drawings I did and some thoughts that I had while I was doing the drawing. But it is still very much in the spirit of kind of low stimulation, gentle, slow, which is something that I decided to kind of lean into since my last video. And I was really pleased by the positive reaction to that video. It was kind of an experiment and I was really happy to see that people liked it, existing subscribers and people who seemed to find the videos for the first time. It seemed to find like some of the audience I hoped it would find, which was really cool. And so yes, it will still be calming, and yeah, I just decided to kind of split the video up a bit into like multiple videos, because in kind of leaning into it, I kind of went, I feel, a little bit too far, to the point where it was very long and quite muddled and lots of different things going on. So I just felt the need to like sort of start again with the talking bits and sort of glue it together a bit differently, if that makes sense. So thank you for your patience, because it has been quite a while, and I feel like I find it hard to like not feel the pressure to make stuff and keep the momentum going and all that kind of thing, but equally that can be hard when I'm trying to make very like organic videos where you can't force it. It's quite hard. Anyway, here we are, and we're gonna first start with a little adventure around Skipton Castle. It is actually only a few minutes long, which when I was filming it felt like it was going to be so much longer than that, but also annoyingly I accidentally left the stabilization off of this camera. I decided to take this camera with me and my GoPro, but the GoPro doesn't do well in low light, and this generally has terrible stabilization, but I'd also not even put on the level that it has. So even when I was stood there like really being careful, like holding the camera so still, I still didn't get very good shots. So bear with me, I kind of put photos in there to fill it up, because I do really like taking photos and I've got a bit more back into photography slowly recently. I used to be really into photography. I used to do a lot of like just hobbyist like landscape photography, nature photography, that kind of thing, but not with any of these massive fancy lenses because they're so expensive. They're really expensive, so I haven't really branched out to that, but I just used to like taking photos when I went on walks and stuff, so I've been trying to slightly get back into that. I've been using my DSLR more, but I didn't want to carry around like 3 cameras, so I went with this one. But yeah, it didn't quite result in the footage that I wanted, but it's all learning and it's all getting better, and it is just me, you know, I'm always just doing it on my own, and sometimes, especially when you're with other people, like, you don't want to just be filming the whole time, and I don't like filming strangers as well. Like, I don't really like getting strangers in the footage, because I just believe like we live in an era where people feel like they're being filmed and like watched all the time, and so I don't really like contributing to that, but it can be hard in like a public place, obviously. So anyway, I also just want to say part of the reason I did this was because one of my online friends from Brazil, who has been a really great friend to me over the years, really likes the medieval era and likes castles, and has never been able to like visit one himself. So that's why I wanted to like capture it a bit and capture some of the atmosphere and talk about it, because you do forget that, like, you forget that there's things on your doorstep that other people never get to experience or never get to see, and they might have like a massive interest in that, but they never get to actually go there and experience it. And it just reminded me, you know, how we kind of take that for granted, like stuff that is actually really cool and to us it maybe becomes more everyday, but it's not every day, and it's actually a really cool thing. And it did actually make me like appreciate it more, I think, when I went there, because I don't know, I just felt like it kind of reminded me how special it is, really. So yeah, I really hope you enjoy it, particularly my friend in Brazil. want to be standing below that, would you? You can have this audio and all if you want.
Go on, laugh it up, laugh it up. She's lost it.
So just a brief history of Skipton Castle, and then I'm gonna show the drawing and just do my bit of kind of diary entry talking about the day. But I just want to say history's not my strong suit. When I actually first filmed this, I watched it back and realised that I said all the dates wrong. Like, for example, I said that, like, I was talking about the 1900s, when we're in the 1600s in the things I was talking about. But a bit of a history of Skipton Castle. It's over 900 years old. So, I mean, that's a really long time, you know? How many, like, think about how much history that is really since that's been there. But yeah, and it was mostly lived in by a family called the Clifford family. And the last Clifford to live there was called Lady Anne Clifford. And she, you know, seemed quite cool. We don't know anything about, you know, her moral character, but it's quite cool that basically in the sort of mid 1600s, I'm saying it correct this time, there was a civil war, and Skipton Castle was under siege for 3 years. And if you don't know what that means, particularly if you know, English isn't your first language, because it's not exactly like an everyday word that we use, it's basically when, like, you know, forces that want to take over, you know, your castle or land or country or whatever, kind of cut you off and surround you, as a way to sort of try and weaken you to the point that they can more easily invade or take over, or that you just surrender. Done for various reasons, and it still happens today, sadly, and it's a very, you know, horrible thing to go through, and it's a cruel, I mean, nothing in, you know, conflict and war is kind, but it's one of those things that might not seem as, like, directly vicious in a way as being, you know, fully attacked, you know, directly, but actually it's just as terrible, and it you know, usually leads to just as much loss of life or illness. And so yeah, it's a really, 3 years is a very long time to go through that. And after the castle withstood this, now I don't know what they mean really by withstood in terms of, like, I imagine that there was a lot of damage and a lot of people were, you know, made unwell or died during this time. So it's actually quite hard to find, like, a lot of information on Skipton Castle. But then I was kind of, I'll admit I wasn't spending ages, like, researching it, because it's, as I say, it's not my strength, history. But yeah, they then restored the castle. So Lady Anne Clifford, she led this restoration, which I think is quite cool, you know. She led this restoration, and she, you know, got the castle back up to a really good condition. And she celebrated the end of the difficult times and the restoration by planting a yew tree. So the yew tree in Skipton Castle is, you know, a massive thing. It's a big draw for me. It's one of my absolute favourite things about the castle. And it's a lovely kind of mystical looking tree, and I really like yew trees. If you didn't watch my last video, I did mention how I really like yew trees, and I do have some pictures of yew trees on my wall because, just to say again, they're a very ancient and quite mystical tree. They were often planted in graveyards because it was believed that they could stop the dead from walking, and this is partly because yew trees often have poisonous qualities. So like if animals went and ate the leaves or they went near it, they could potentially become sick or die because it's quite a poisonous tree. And so, you know, back in history, this kind of linked them to potentially being, you know, sinister in a kind of supernatural way. But also, on the other hand, they would kind of utilise that. So in utilising this poison, they would use it to kind of keep animals away from graves and to, as they say, to potentially deal with that. And I believe it also has a link to like the underworld and even witches and things like that. I can't quite remember that, where I've got that from. But yeah, very interesting type of tree, I believe, and very old, often very, very old. And this one was planted in 1659, so it's, I think I did the maths, but it's about 360 plus. I think it was 367 years I calculated. Is that right? Somebody tell me if it's right. So it's been there for a long time. And that's really, really cool, you know, to think that that has grown through all those years and years and years. I did look on this website called ancientyew.org where it told you a bit more about different yew trees, and apparently the person who kind of went from there to look at it said that it was a slow growing yew because considering how old it wasn't, you know, as tall as some might have been. So that was quite interesting. So it's quite funny to think about like how tall it might have been through different eras, you know. But yeah, you can... There's always noise in this house. I'm gonna lose the plot. Oh, it's fine. Can my family be quiet for 5 minutes? Oh my god. I can't go on. I need a nap. I really do, actually. I'm gonna have a nap after this. 100%. Anyway, yeah, the yew tree. Really good yew tree. Really good tree. Can see it from all angles of the castle, which I speak about in my little writing bit anyway. But yeah, love it. Love the tree, and yeah, you'll hear more about that in my little writing section. So I'm gonna show the drawing and do that bit, and then I'm just gonna talk about some artist hidden talents I got thinking about that or drawing my castle. So yeah. Sorry, one last thing, I got these cool badges. This is a I Explored Skipton Castle badge. I quite like the way they do the negative space at the gate. That's quite clever, I think. And I got this one. I have explored the Skipton Castle dungeon. Now it makes it seem like I've been on some sort of Halloween-y like event. I haven't, but I just liked it because it had ghosts on. Focus, please focus, please focus, please. There. Has it got it? I always feel like an influencer when I do this. I don't like it. I also have this really cute Brambley hedge coaster. Let's just show that for a second. That's not the right way around. There. Did anyone watch Brambley Hedge when they were a kid? This was actually my favourite episode as well. Like, when they did the ice... This is like a winter episode where they did like a... What would the word be? Like a ball. But it was ice skates, like a winter ball. And they're all on ice skates. Although now I see it, I think it's just their feet. They're just using their feet. But at the time it felt like they were ice skating, you know. But they're just using their little mouse feet. But yeah, and it was, yeah, I'm pretty sure this character is the main character, and he was kind of like, oh, I really want to get to dance with that girl, I really want to dance, and it's a really good episode, yeah. It's really, really wintry and magical. I love winter-themed media. I've said this about 15 times. Maybe if I managed to finish Toast in the Machine by Christmas, I could make something winter-themed. That'd be quite cool. Or I could do a Toast in the Machine winter theme at some point. This is the thing, I'm like, I need to do so much work on Toast in the Machine, but I'm already like, I want to do this, want to do that, want to do that. That's where I am. So I need to chill out and focus on one thing at a time. Dear friend, in mid-August we went back to Skipton Castle. The heat had only just subsided, and the grasses by the roadside were dried and yellowed. It felt almost odd to be going on a fun day out, like we should have been in some kind of nature mourning period. But it had been so long since I'd been well enough for an adventure, and despite feeling tired the night before, I hadn't given in to the creeping temptation to cancel. It's not often that I'm comforted by a public space, but there's something about the castle that makes me feel so. Buying our tickets, the person on the desk told us about the surrounding room. Some kind of very old memorial, I think, but I lost track because I was thinking about how it looked like shells were in the wall. It made me think of some kind of mermaid hideaway. We looked around the chapel first. It was being prepared for a wedding. I don't tend to have much interest in the idea of marriage, but I couldn't deny it seemed like a lovely place for it. Warm light golden across the restored beams of the ceiling, simple benches, and that hard-to-explain aura of history. Feeling like a 12-year-old, I ran around trying to find my parents on multiple occasions, as I got delayed by filming and taking photos, having reluctantly rationed myself to the 2 cameras, one leaving me with painfully shaky footage and a sore arm. As you walk up the steps to the castle, it does feel grand, and yet it's a strangely cosy feeling castle. The rooms don't feel overly large or overwhelming. There's a warmth to it, like you could just imagine drifting back in time and gazing out the window while you, worried about the Civil War. The yew tree at Skipton Castle is one of the biggest draws for me. Very old trees are as exciting as very old buildings, if not more so, as the trees are alive and have seen everything. The tree is at the centre of the castle courtyard and can be seen from almost all the rooms. When you look out, it's hard to comprehend that you're seeing not far off the exact same thing that someone else did from over 300 years ago. Even all these years later, it feels like a celebration. It makes total sense that it was put there after the castle was restored, a beacon of peace and hope to mark the end of a bleak period. I feared I was going to fall on the deeply worn spiral staircases, and me and my dad acted out how hard it would be to attack from below. It is a clever design after all. We laughed at the toilet that opens straight down to the river, not a place you'd want to risk a boat trip. As we left, I leapt down from a step like a kid would, and my mind took a fleeting note of appreciation of my improved health. I drank herbal tea in the courtyard. It was so peaceful and quiet somehow, even when an entire scout group descended to start the castle tour. My mum and dad were laughing at my dad's desire to look good in photos. I got 2 badges and a load of postcards and marvelled that it only cost £4. We went around the Skipton markets, but there were a lot more people and my energy drained quickly, so I stood and waited for my parents by a collection of wooden spoons. As we walked back, I took a photo of a church door with plants all around it. I could see it in my mind I wanted to draw it. My mum asked me if I wanted to look at the building, but I said I was tired and why not save it for next time. A lot of people have the ethos that if they go somewhere, they have to see and do everything. Of course this is understandable if you know you might never get to go there again, but otherwise I quite often like to leave something unseen.
That way nothing is quite the same way twice, and curiosity can be preserved. It also prevents rushing around, which is never the way I like to take things in. What can you notice if you don't stand still? There's a lot more to things than the obvious. Just like there's a lot more to the experience of going to a castle like this than just facts and figures and planting dates. Like the feeling of the woods that stretch out below, that you see from the highest windows. A wood that watched over many lifetimes in every celebration and tragedy. Quietly indifferent, or maybe sometimes sympathetic.
I never know how to end things. I feel like that got a little bit pretentious, a little bit. I got thinking about the indifference of nature, I find that really interesting. I like people who write about that. If you ever read a book by Mary Webb, I would recommend. She writes about this really well. That was random. But yes, what I was going to talk about now is quite different. So yeah, as I was drawing my castle, it's funny how I got thinking about like the artist's process and the artist's life, and so many things that I think about to do with art, and the experience of that. And it gets overwhelming, and I'm honestly can feel in my brain I don't want to go off on too many tangents. I'm going to try not to, but the thing I was thinking about was about all these kind of underappreciated, undervalued skills that artists have that go beyond art. Like, for a minute, let's not even talk about all the skills that you have to make art, in and of itself, and creativity and all that. But even things like the psychological processes, because art has a lot of like psychological sides to it, and a lot of it is very inward, it's very in our minds. A lot of our skills and our abilities come from just things that are going on in our head. And that often isn't appreciated. It's very kind of unseen. And so, for example, when I was drawing the castle, it sounds kind of silly, but on a very small scale, I was thinking about all the things you kind of go through when you're doing a drawing like that. Like, that drawing is very out of my wheelhouse. Like, it's not my favourite kind of thing to do. And I was feeling a bit like out of my depth. I don't usually draw buildings, and some of the details, like I knew I was drawing like an inaccurate amount of windows, for example, and I was also thinking about the bricks a lot. I was like, I can't draw the bricks, I don't know how to present the bricks. And then I went on to do the ink one as well, where it was like even harder to think, how am I going to do these bricks, like, because I've got like now a medium that is very kind of set in a line, and yeah, as I was going through, I just kind of tried to mark make and kind of navigate my way around it, like start somewhere and kind of just go from there. And I did manage it, and I ended up drawing something in my sketchbook that I don't think is the best drawing, but I did complete it. And it's not the kind of drawing that I would normally do, and I would normally be too overwhelmed to even try, to be honest. And I had to keep persevering, there was quite a few psychological processes that you have to go through. Initially you have to have the bravery to sit down and try, and a lot of people struggle with even that. And I'm not saying that makes them a bad person or whatever, but I'm saying it takes a strength to face the blank page, to sit down, to And it takes practice as well. As you practice as an artist, you find this easier and easier. But there's still days where it's really hard. But yeah, you face the blank page and you attempt something that is out of your comfort zone. And you have all those feelings of like, I'm out of my depth. Is this going to be good? I don't think this is going to be good. And I have to face that it might not be good. And I might be showing myself doing something that isn't great. And I might be showing myself, you know, not completing this very well. And looking, you know, like you don't know what you're doing. And a lot of people struggle with that as well. That psychology of being seen not being good at something, not being great at something, of being seen trying, as they say. And I've spoken to a lot of people over the years who like just the mere idea of trying something new and not being good at it quickly enough. They just can't carry on. That's just them done. They can't persevere through that. And so it's quite an interesting thing. Yeah, so I know a lot of people who just can't persevere through that. They find it really, really hard. And again, we all have our own strengths and weaknesses. This isn't about, you know, artist supremacy or something. Artists are brilliant and everyone else is terrible kind of thing. I'm saying that what I think is sad is that artists have so many skills that are so rarely valued, and are not seen as skills that they have. You don't often see an artist as strong, as resilient, as someone who perseveres, as someone who goes through difficult things. I think people still have this kind of mindset, the creative people, especially if you do it for work, that you're kind of like constantly living the rainbow dream of people who, oh, they get to do what they want all the time and they get to have fun all the time and do what they, you know, and it just must be a dream every single day. And don't get me wrong, I feel incredibly privileged to do this, and it is incredibly difficult to, like, you know, be able to do this. And we live in a tough world that is really not, you know, you can't often, you know, easily get like a full-time job as an artist or something. It's a real privilege to be able to take the financial risk to pursue things like this. And so it's not that I don't value that and see that, and that I think it's, you know, a really horrible, you know, pursuit, but I do think it's still a hard pursuit and it's still a hard path. And there's a lot of difficulties and a lot of things you have to persevere through, and remind yourself, you know, why you're doing it, and remind yourself of, you know, that it is a good thing to be able to do. Because you can get so lost in just how difficult it is. And yeah, to go back to where I was, like, yeah, so I feel, for example, we have all these skills of an ability to try new things, to be an amateur, to not be afraid of that. I mean, sometimes I think you're at your best when you're an amateur, because you're not arrogant and you're willing to take any advice, and you're in that exciting time of research and fun and doing it all for the love of it, and you're kind of in a really great stage when you're an amateur, and keeping in that mindset is actually a really valuable thing. But yeah, like, you know, you are willing to put yourself out there, to face the blank page, to be seen doing something that comes from you and that might not always be, you know, skillfully amazing. And you put your creative ideas out there, and your imagination and your thoughts and your vulnerabilities. And that takes a lot of strength and a lot of bravery. And also, you, as I say, you go through these phases where there's so many setbacks and something goes wrong, or something's really hard, something's really difficult. You have to persevere and persevere, but you see it through to the end. And also that thing of like problem solving. Like, I've said this before actually, but I believe that artists are such good problem solvers. They have to problem solve all the time. They have to figure out, why isn't this working, and how can I make it work, and how would I do that differently, and how would, you know, the way that artists view things and view the world and process things is so unique, you know. And this is true of all kinds of creative pursuits, can I just say. I believe that so many creatives have so many skills, you know. And yeah, I just wanted to talk about this briefly, just to say that I feel that, you know, we live in a world that doesn't value these things. And it's kind of understandable, because our world prioritizes and puts those on a pedestal who have a lot of this kind of material success, material skills, material values. They have the money and they have the power and they have status and they have a massive group of social, you know, people flocking around them, and they have a nuclear family. They've kind of ticked all the boxes of what society wants them to want and wants them to achieve, and they kind of sell this idea that if you just work hard enough, if you just plow on, if you just try, you might get up to this, you know, top percentile. And not only is this this idea false, you know, because there are so many hardworking people that just spend their entire lives just scraping by, but also we can ask ourselves, why are we even aspiring to it? Why are we aspiring to be in that top percent? Because why do we want that over being in a mutual community, you know, a mutual beneficial community? Like, why do we want to be above other people? You know, I mean, I think a lot of us actually, if we actually ask ourselves, a lot of us really just want to sustain ourselves. We want to live and to support each other and to be able to eat and to be able to live freely and comfortably to a degree. I'm not saying really, richly comfortable, but, you know, to be well and to be looked after and to look after each other, and that's it, you know. A lot of people don't necessarily want to be rich, you know, like have massive houses and the sports cars, and I don't know, I feel like I'm giving a very, like, I don't know, childhood view of richness there, but do you see what I'm saying? I'm saying, like, if we all want that, like, why do we ever even listen to this anyway? Because we don't want to be that person anyway, you know. We just want to sustain ourselves, you know. And the sad reality is that is what it becomes. A small percentage of people, you know, are very rich, and the rest, and almost everybody else, just struggles and struggles, and some a heck of a lot more than others as well. And again, I think this comes back to these skills. In a community, a proper community, all these skills of emotional regulation and different perceptions and problem solving and insight and sensitivity to people's difficulties that I feel a lot of artists have from the way that they look at things, it would be very, very valued, you know, because it would have a real place in a community, in, you know, emotional well-being, you know, mental well-being, physical well-being, mourning, you know, helping people through mourning, helping people through different stages of life, spiritual guidance, so on and so forth. It would all have storytelling as well. Like, how much has storytelling been such a powerful, you know, force throughout history, and yet now all these things, you know, you could say that people still value them, but I'm like, but mostly it's people who have been proven successful. You know, I was thinking about success, like, it's like you can be successful in so many ways that people don't appreciate, but until, you know, money proves your success, you're not deemed successful, because we still think success is money and that they are intrinsically connected. Until you have that money, you're not proven a success. And, you know, I was thinking about Nick Drake, for example. Nick Drake is someone that I deeply admire the creative mind of, and that the music of, and he's both inspiring to me, and also I kind of take his life like a bit of a warning. And I don't mean to turn a human being into like a story of warning, because I don't really like to do that, but when I think about Nick Drake, it's just the way that he, to me, was so ahead of people his age in terms of the way he looked at the world. He had such an emotional maturity and such a philosophical maturity and such a depth of understanding of life. And I don't mean the life that we think it is, this materialism, this consumerism, we've got to do this. I'm talking about actual what life actually is, you know, beyond all that rubbish. You know, he understood that at such a young age, and he put it in his music, and it was so genuine and so heartfelt and so real. And he tried to put it in a commercial world that wasn't ready for it, that didn't have an appreciation for it. And even though there were people who saw the value, they couldn't get him the success, the material success that he needed to continue, that the world told him he needed, that society told him he had to gain in order to be Nick Drake, the successful musician. And yeah, if you don't know, Nick Drake was like a singer-songwriter from England who he became famous a lot, like quite a long period of time after his death. And he died in his mid-20s believing he was a failure. And this feeling got him down so much that he spent like the last few years of his life incredibly depressed. They said that when he recorded one of his albums, he was like a shadow of himself. Like he was like a shadow, and he managed to put the music out there because it's so, you know, central to him. But he was just so lost in his grief over that failure. He felt a failure. And so I really remember this because I think how sad that he saw himself a failure when he had created such incredible music. And I kind of remind myself, not that I think I'm making incredible stuff or anything, but like I do try and remind myself, like, because over the years, with all the like the setbacks that I've had with mental health, I've had, you know, like 10 years plus of like mental health problems that I've only just kind of got peace enough from that I'm kind of more present. And then the whole year of physical ill health as well. But I feel really grateful, of course, to be in this place. I feel so grateful. But at the same time, I feel I've lost so much time. And I have to move on. I have to forget about that. But I do sometimes. I have thought of myself as a failure over the past few years quite a number of times. Like, I've been trying to do this art for a number of years now. And I started from scratch. And it's been really hard, and I have put my heart and soul into it, but I haven't always been able to give 100% or even 40% because I've been so unwell. And I do feel like sometimes I feel that time is running out, and, you know, it's a good reminder to think about Nick Drake and think that it's not just these material markers of success that determine whether you are like getting somewhere or you're valuable as a person or your creative work matters. Because I think to myself, like, when I actually think about it, I need to value the things that I have. I'm so grateful to have such a level of health now that I haven't had in maybe 10 years, mentally and physically. I'm so grateful to have the privilege to do this work and to do things like this and talk to you and reach people maybe and connect with people maybe. And I feel that I have learned so much, and I don't believe that suffering is a good way to learn and that it's all about silver linings. I'm not talking about that. But I will say that I feel as an artist and as a person who's gone through a lot of mental challenges, and being autistic and walking through the world as an autistic person as well, I have gained a lot of skills and a lot of different insights and a very different perspective to a lot of people around me. And that can be hard sometimes because I can feel kind of out of it, you know, because it can be hard going through life kind of feeling like you've gone through this really, really big thing, but nobody saw it and it's kind of completely unseen and you're just kind of there and expected to just act like everything's normal and fine, and it is normal and fine in a way, but like equally it's quite a weird thing. But yeah, I feel that actually within me recently I've been feeling this sense of peace and this strength within me that I feel I can face things in a way that I couldn't years ago. And that is a valuable thing to have grown as a person.
And this is what I'm saying, is that I feel that as artists, and as anyone who has gone through something that is very, my therapist often calls this inward facing, that a lot of the time things that are quite inward facing, the experiences where they're not obvious and they kind of go on and people don't know what's going on, they aren't often appreciated, they aren't often seen as serious as they are or whatever. And that can be true of good and bad things, wherever things may lie on that scale. But yeah, at the end of the day, I truly feel that so many artists and people who've gone through difficult things, and anyone who's gained that insight and then also who puts it into their creative work and puts their heart and soul into things, you have so many things within you that are valuable to life, to communities. You have unique insights, you have unique ways of looking at things, you have an ability to not give up and to try a different approach and try things differently and try another attempt and keep going when a lot of people would have to step away. And again, I'm not saying it's always bad to step away. Sometimes that's actually the right choice, to take a break. I'm just saying that I think there's a great bravery and strength in being an artist, and that is not often recognised. People would not often go, artists are really strong people, artists are really resilient people, but they are. They really, really are. And I find this with mental health as well. These are two very different things, but because it's such a big part of my life that's interlinked, I often link them together, so please forgive me. But it's like with mental health, when people relate that to weakness. We're seeing it a lot as well with, there's so much ableism in society at the minute. It's really on the rise in the UK, which is very worrying, but it's getting really bad in the UK. A lot of people saying, ADHD is made up, autism is made up, why are women using mobility aids and all this kind of thing. It's just, it's bizarre, and it's not called out enough, and there's a lot of this thing about calling people who are going through things like this weakness, and that they're just not strong enough, they're just not brave enough and hardy enough to just power through it, to just get through it, because these people saying this have an absolutely ridiculous level of misunderstanding of what people are actually going through. They have never gone through it, and so they just assume that they know. And a ridiculous thing to me is, for example, with mental health, is that the level of bravery and courage you have to have day in, day out to live with a mental health condition is immense. It makes almost every single action, the most mundane, the most boring, the most everyday thing, is fraught with stress, anxiety, tension, with a need to be brave and to be resilient. Even the most simple task, the most easy thing to someone else, becomes a mountain to climb. Just getting out of bed, just brushing your teeth, if you can manage it that day, becomes immensely difficult. And that requires an immense amount of bravery and difficulty to get through. And you have to be very resilient. Too much. You have to be too resilient to get through these problems. You're tired of being resilient. You're tired of being brave. So I just think it is such a frustrating thing to, beyond that, really beyond that, to hear people call these people weak, because they have had to be so strong in ways you can probably not even comprehend. They've had to be stronger before breakfast than the people writing these articles and saying these things have had to be in probably about 10 years, because they have no idea. They can't comprehend it at all. And so you shouldn't talk about it. If you can't understand it, you should step out of the conversation, in my opinion, if you're not going to contribute anything positive. But yeah, I get quite, as we know, I get quite passionate about this, because it's a very, these things, it's a massive thing for me and a massive theme in my work, and it never stops frustrating me. And yeah, I could go on forever about this, but I won't today. But yeah, there's people who have gone through incredibly hard things, and they go through it majoritively alone, in their mind, in their own head, fighting a battle that no one else sees. And day in, day out, they have to try, and it takes a long time. Like my mental health, I've got to a place now where I've recovered from a number of issues, and being autistic, I've managed to tailor my life enough that it doesn't stress me out as much anymore. And I've got to a place now that 2 years ago, 10 years ago, even when I was a child, genuinely, I didn't think I could ever get to. I didn't think there would ever be a time where I didn't just feel constantly anxious every single day, where I wouldn't wake up feeling dread from morning to night, where I wouldn't feel depressed all the time, where I wouldn't feel in pain. This is the thing, people forget, it is painful. It's physically painful, you know, and you live with it day in, day out. I don't think I've tied my necklace right. But yeah, I've tried to stress that a number of times, because the thing is I feel sad that probably the people watching these videos, they know this, because a lot of people actually, like myself, have been through this. And it's a shame that sometimes the people who probably need to have their minds maybe slightly changed probably don't see videos like this, but maybe I couldn't convince them anyway, you know. But yeah, I just keep hoping that, you know, we can try and face the future together as best we can. So yeah, I think my overall point was just, if you're watching this and you've been through a similar thing, or you're ever feeling like, what do I have to offer anything? I felt that so many times. I felt like I haven't achieved anything. I haven't done anything good. I don't have any skills or whatever. But I've started to realise that that's not true, because we all have things within ourselves, and our experiences and our perspectives and things that are, you know, capable, things that we are capable of doing to bring comfort to others, maybe insight to others, advice, support, a new idea. Yeah, I guess I was thinking about this thing of community and art and all that kind of thing. Did I get to a point? This is what happens. Do I ever get to a point? I'm not sure, but yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Yeah. So, I think that's the end of the video. And let me just, yeah, and just a final note to say, I do have some new prints on my shop. This one inspired by a walk I went on in the woods, and I saw deer multiple times, and I also did a piece of drawing about, a piece of writing about this, which you get with the print. I get my spare one out from my many piles, like this, double-sided, to have a read of kind of the reflection that inspired this. I kind of deliberately drew from grainy footage of my camcorder on my phone, and I just took a bit of a snippet from the writing to put in here. I was just thinking about, you know, I love filming, don't get me wrong, when I'm actually like trying to film for videos and stuff, but I was thinking about that thing sometimes where you feel like you have to take a video, you have to take a photo. It almost didn't happen, and it's like, but it did happen. You can just look at it and actually enjoy it. And sometimes I've actually missed like really cool things by scrambling to take a video or something, and so it was kind of about that, yeah. And I also got this one, if I can find it, which was also inspired by a walk. But like that feeling of not wanting to go on a walk and going anyway. These are both in pencil with digital colour, which is the same as this one as well, which is my May Trans People Live in Safety print that I did get in an A5 size, because previously I only had that in A4. So everything now has A4 and A5 options. These also have A4. And you can see the processes of both of these in previous videos on my channel if you're interested. And yeah, I just ended up doing a pretty small shop update. So it's those two prints. I did put a couple of originals on as well. I do have some other originals still on there. So they're quite, you know, fun to have a look at if you're interested. So yes,
thank you for your time, and yes, if you want to know more, do please check out my shop. I also do have a monthly newsletter which I sent out for the second time this month, and you automatically get the previous newsletter right up until I do the new one. And I just kind of talk about random things like what I've been working on, anything new in the shop, but also just regular life stuff like any favourites. I rambled on for about 500 words in this one about rewatching The Little Vampire, which is one of my favourite like Halloween films from when I was a kid. So stuff like that. And yeah, that's about it. My parents are making noise again, so I'm going to end the video. This is what I have to live with, everyone. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all the best, and please do leave me a comment. I love seeing long comments, and I am also open to feedback. Of course, try not to be mean about it, but I am happy to receive feedback and anything you'd like to see, or that you think could have been different in the video and it would have been a bit better, whatever. Do let me know, and thank you so much, and goodbye.